Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, December 3rd. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect mostly cloudy skies and a high of 58 degrees in San Antonio today. Get ready for the rematch. Former Councilman Greg Brockhouse is gearing up for a second run at Mayor Ron Nirenberg after losing the 2019 mayoral runoff by only 2.2 percentage points. We have everything you need to know about how the 2021 campaign will be different over at expressnews.com. A Texas mother's chance of undergoing surgical intervention during childbirth can have less to do with her health and more to do with the hospital where she gives birth. Keep an eye out for our latest investigative report coming out today over at expressnews.com. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. A father and son who headed a San Antonio area factoring company were arrested this week in connection with an alleged scheme to defraud investors of at least $800,000. 76-year-old Earl Roberts Sr. and 50-year-old Larry Roberts were indicted by a federal grand jury last month on 2 counts of mail fraud, 2 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud. They face up to 20 years in prison on each count if convicted. Patrick Danner takes a closer look at the accusations against them and their company in his latest article. Bexar County leads the state in babies born with withdrawal symptoms because of drug exposure in the womb, a condition called neonatal abstinence syndrome, accounting for 1/3 of the state's NAS cases. On Thursday, City Council will decide on a zoning request that could expand the kind of healthcare services needed to combat the city's problem. A project led by Crosspoint Inc. and UT Health San Antonio School of Nursing that has already brought in nearly $3 million in state funding. Emmanuel AME Church wants to sell part of its property to the nonprofit so that its women's wellness campus can be constructed. But the proposed location for the campus on the city's east side has run into opposition. The Grand Hyatt, San Antonio's convention center hotel, has fallen behind on its bond payments, and city officials are looking to make it up with tax revenue collected mostly from visitors. The city anticipates making $13.4 million in debt payments over the next 7 months to help keep the financially struggling hotel afloat, said Ben Gorzel, the city's chief financial officer. It already made one of the Grand Hyatt's payments for $338,000 on July 15th. Randy Diamond explains why officials have little choice in this situation in his latest column. Like many arts groups, the Classical Music Institute, its chamber ensemble, faculty, executives, and board have remained at work despite a pandemic. The Institute produced a scaled-down summer academy for Edgewood ISD middle school students. The academy was conducted virtually and included students from Guadalajara, Mexico. It was taught by instructors all over the globe. COVID-19 cut into the Institute's 2020 season, but didn't chip away at its unique focus, embracing traditional fans while building new audiences in communities of color from the ground up with student musicians of color. Read more about CMI and a rising star in its composer in residency program over at expressnews.com. Coronavirus infections are soaring in San Antonio at levels not seen since the last major surge here, as officials reported 1,499 new cases on Wednesday. Before Wednesday, the highest number of new cases was 1,323 on July 30th. That last surge lasted for months, beginning in June and tapering off in August. Despite the troubling resurgence in cases, Mayor Ron Nirenberg and Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolf both noted a positive shift in the virus situation since the summer. Metro Health is now testing scores more people, sometimes administering more than 5,000 tests a day. We have everything you need to stay updated on the coronavirus over at expressnews.com. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. The White House Coronavirus Task Force is urging Texas and other states to conduct aggressive impact testing of everyone under 40 to determine who may have been infected over the Thanksgiving holiday. The Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office could not say for certain what caused the death of 4 young children believed killed by their parents in their far north side home last summer, according to autopsy reports released Wednesday. After San Antonio voters approved Mayor Ron Nirenberg's workforce development program, city officials now have to hammer out the details. First up, who's going to run the program? With about a month left to go until the Texas legislature returns to Austin, criminal justice reform advocates are pushing new legislation to prevent innocent Texans from spending time in prison for crimes they didn't commit. A renaissance could be in store for a row of empty gray and rust-colored buildings on the near west side. Via Metropolitan Transit is seeking proposals for redeveloping the historic Scobie complex. Christopher Cross contracted COVID-19 in early March. 9 months later, the Grammy Award-winning San Antonio musician is still battling complications from the virus. LaMarcus Aldridge is 35 and coming off shoulder surgery. He's being asked to remake his game for the sake of a rebuilding team whose best days lie beyond his time on the roster. His fit with the Spurs is one of the team's top storylines of training camp. U.S. Representative Chip Roy, a Texas Republican, pushed back on President Donald Trump's threat to veto a massive annual defense spending bill unless it includes language getting rid of legal protections for social media companies like Facebook and Twitter. With Joe Biden now president-elect, Texas Democrats are largely staying quiet on the next administration's climate ambitions, most notably Biden's pledge to halt oil and gas leasing in federal lands and waters, including the Gulf of Mexico. Stephen Canty, a former executive of a Kerrville consulting company, was sentenced to time served and 5 years of supervised release after pleading guilty to making a false statement on a loan application that cost a Texas bank almost $13 million. It's no exaggeration to call the original Amazon Echo one of the most important personal tech products of the past 5 years. The 2020 version is even better. We have everything you need to know about it over at expressnews.com. The city's Historic and Design Review Commission gave conceptual approval Wednesday to plans for an apartment complex across the San Antonio River from the Pearl. The Express News editorial board writes, quote, "Recent complaints about the San Antonio Fire Department's arson bureau reflect a culture of sexism defined by crude and lewd remarks, as well as behaviors that have been tolerated and accepted." Read the full editorial over at expressnews.com. A line of cars approached an encampment of homeless people that had sprouted under a bridge downtown, ferrying a group of nurses with 250 navy blue fleece blankets. At the camp, the volunteer healthcare workers met Chris Trez, who has been homeless since April. Before the pandemic, he was a construction worker in Del Rio. He happily accepted a blanket Wednesday afternoon because he didn't know the next time he might get one. Volunteers with the San Antonio Indian Nurses Association ventured out to 3 downtown homeless encampments Wednesday afternoon. You can read more about their project over at expressnews.com. The carb-heavy comfort of these classic dishes feels just right for a pandemic winter. We're featuring 4 recipes: a tater tot hot dish, Iowa-style handballs, a spaghetti pie, and a cheesy hash brown casserole that will deliver all the comfort you and your family need right now. While we may not be able to go to concerts, see blockbuster movies on the big screen, or visit the homes of people outside our bubbles or pods, a bounty of striking new coffee table books allow fans to indulge those interests from a distance. You could count Patty Mills as a big fan of the team's new Fiesta-themed alternate jerseys. "I love them," the veteran guard said of the Nike City Edition alternate garb. How do cats learn how high they need to jump? Kathy M. Rosenthal explains in the latest installment of Animals Matter. Express News staff writer David Hinojosa sets up the San Antonio area's high school football weekend. And that's all for today. This was your Express briefing for Thursday, December 3rd. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.